Morbid Facts, Part 767. In 2005, Leo DiCaprio was attending a private party when an uninvited guest, 40-year-old Aretha Wilson, suddenly smashed a glass bottle and slashed him across the face and neck. She was reportedly drunk, furious, and believed DiCaprio was her ex-boyfriend, the same man who was hosting the party. The attack left Leo covered in blood, inches from having his jugular vein severed, and required 17 stitches to close the wounds. Instead of staying to face the consequences, Wilson fled the country and hid in Canada for 5 years. She was eventually extradited back to the US, where she pleaded no contest to assault with a deadly weapon and was sentenced to 2 years in prison. An incredibly light punishment considering she almost killed one of the most famous actors in the world over mistaken identity. Robert Lawrence Jr. made history in 1967 as America's first black astronaut, and he did it with unmatched skill. He held a PhD, was one of the Air Force's top test pilots, and was on track to become the first black man in space. At his first press conference, a reporter tried to joke by asking if he'd have to sit in the back of the spacecraft, and Lawrence shut it down with, "We're all officers, we all sit in the front." But less than a year later, his life was cut short during a high-speed training mission when another pilot misjudged a maneuver. Lawrence ejected, but his parachute failed to deploy properly, and he slammed into the ground, dying instantly at just 32 years old. The program was canceled soon after, and Robert Lawrence Jr.'s name was nearly lost to history. Morbid Facts, Part 768. Kyle Marissa Roth blew up on TikTok for fearlessly exposing celebrity scandals using follower-submitted blind items. Despite her bold personality online, she was quietly battling serious health issues behind the scenes, reportedly suffering from chronic pain and illness that she never fully shared with her audience. But instead of letting it break her, she used it as fuel. Roth said that seeing other chronically ill people push through their struggles inspired her to keep making content. However, in April of 2024, she was suddenly found dead at just 36 years old, leaving millions of followers stunned and searching for answers. Even stranger, just days before she died, Roth had posted videos saying she was going through something but would explain soon. Her cause of death still hasn't publicly been released, but her family has asked for privacy and insisted that she was deeply loved. The woman who spent her life revealing secrets left the world with one of her own, but fans remember her not just for the drama she uncovered, but also for her humor, bravery, and the way she made people feel seen and entertained during their darkest days. Morbid Facts, Part 246. In 2016, American singer Christina Grimmie was signing autographs after performing when she was approached by 27-year-old Kevin Loibl, who didn't say a word. Assuming he was just being shy, Christina opened her arms to greet him with a hug. That's when Loibl pulled out a pistol and shot her 3 times at point-blank range before taking his own life. Police didn't offer a motive for the senseless murder, but said that Loibl had an unhealthy and unrealistic infatuation with the singer. Christina's singing coach Adam Levine was heartbroken by the tragedy and ended up paying for her funeral. In 1990, a Japanese schoolgirl died after a teacher slammed a gate into her head because the gate had to be closed at exactly 8:30 and the student was late. In the 1980s, a man with severe OCD shot himself in the head attempting to take his own life. But instead of killing him, the bullet destroyed the part of his brain that was responsible for the OCD, and he went on to become a straight-A college student 5 years later. They thought she was just a sweet, innocent grandma, but behind her front door was pure horror. In the 1980s, California woman Dorothea Puente used her Sacramento boarding house as a hunting ground for the vulnerable. She took in the elderly, the homeless, alcoholics, and people with mental illness, those with monthly government checks and no family to worry about them. Once they trusted her, she allegedly drugged them with heavy sedatives, suffocated them in their sleep, and buried them in her backyard like garbage. Tenants began mysteriously disappearing, but Puente kept cashing their social security payments and forging signatures as if they were still alive. Neighbors complained of a foul stench and constant digging in her yard, but police believed her every time she claimed the tenants had simply moved out. In 1988, police finally searched her property and dug up body after body, unearthing 7 decomposing corpses hidden in shallow graves. Even then, Puente was so calm and grandmotherly that officers let her step outside to get coffee, and she fled the state. After a nationwide manhunt, she was caught and eventually linked to at least 9 murders, though many believe the real number was far higher. Morbid Facts, Part 596. Actor David Harbour has been very open about his dark past, particularly his struggles with mental health, alcoholism, and suicidal thoughts. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder at age 25 after a severe manic episode, Harbour was admitted to a mental hospital when he started believing he was receiving divine messages and was possibly the Antichrist. Prior to this, he spent years battling alcohol addiction, which began in his teens and only worsened in college, leading to a life he described as lonely, directionless, and self-destructive. He's admitted to violent emotional outbursts during manic episodes, such as smashing mirrors and feeling like a danger to himself and others. At his lowest, he felt like he was slowly disappearing and contemplated taking his own life. Harbour now credits acting with saving his life since it gave him a way to channel his mental chaos into performance. Now sober and in treatment, he describes himself as someone who enjoys consciousness too much to ever return to his old ways. Morbid Facts, Part 247. Barry Delaney made a pact that if his friend Private Kevin Elliott died in combat, he would wear the brightest dress he could find to the funeral. Barry kept his promise when Elliott was sadly killed during a Taliban ambush. Last year in Montreal, Canada, a terminally ill patient legally chose to be euthanized. After he drank the deadly liquid concoction and described it as bitter, the patient's friend wanted to taste it himself, which nearly resulted in his death as well. In 2015, a cat that had been hit by a car and buried for 5 days managed to crawl out of its grave, only suffering a broken jaw and the loss of one eye. A flightless bird called the great auk, aka the original penguin, was a species driven to extinction by humans. Scientists in the 1600s noticed the population was declining and tried to prevent it through various laws, but failed. In 1840, the last auk in Great Britain was beaten to death with sticks when the men believed it was a witch causing storms. Morbid Facts, Part 569. In 1963, Frank Sinatra's 19-year-old son Frank Jr. was kidnapped from his hotel room in Lake Tahoe and held for ransom. He was released 2 days later when his father agreed to pay the $240,000, and the 3 perpetrators were captured and arrested soon afterwards. But the kidnapping had a lasting traumatic impact on Frank Sr., who began carrying dimes in his pockets everywhere he went, since the kidnappers demanded all communication be done through payphones, and Frank was concerned that one day he wouldn't have enough change to call them. It became such a habit that the legendary singer was even buried with 10 dimes in his pocket after he died. In January of 1993, Texas attorney David Glenn Lewis planned on watching the Super Bowl alone at home while his wife and daughter were out shopping, but when they returned, there was no sign of him. They found freshly made sandwiches in the fridge, David's laundry in the washing machine, and David's watch and wedding ring on the counter, but no David in sight. The next night, a man was killed in a hit-and-run 1,600 miles away near Yakima, Washington, and 11 years later, the body would be identified as David Glenn Lewis. How David ended up 1,600 miles away so quickly and the circumstances surrounding his death remain total mysteries to this day.